I just interviewed Charlie, who did what every entrepreneur wants. He quit his job and built his business to 27K MRR with no employees.
As of today, Links is at 27K MRR. What's kind of cool is that these days I'm actually not spending much time on Links at all.
But he also did something that nobody wants. After he quit his job, his side hustle didn't work out, so he had to go back to the same exact job. And here's the crazy part. It worked out just fine. He used that time to build the foundation for what soon would come.
I actually went back to my previous job full-time, continued developing these two projects on the side. After almost 4 years of that, had grown it to 25K, and that's when I quit my job for the second time.
He followed his own curiosity, solved his own problems, and launched into a market with clear demand, but low competition. In this video, you'll learn the strategy Charlie used to land his first customers, how to work on your side hustle while still having a day job, and the business opportunities that are available for anyone to start today. Let's dive in. Okay, Charlie, you quit your job to grow your side business. What is that business and how is it doing today?
So I actually quit my job twice. The first time I quit, I had an idea of a business I wanted to start, and I spent almost a year developing that business. Towards the end, I had another idea for another business, and I spent a couple weeks on that. And so by the end of this year, I had two starts of businesses. One was Links, which I'll talk more about. The other one was Visual, which was an art marketplace. And so I had these two businesses that had sort of very early days, and that was when COVID started. And I was like, this didn't feel like a good time to be sort of like just starting out with these new businesses. And so I actually went back to my previous job full time and continued developing these two projects on the side. Over the next few years, one of those projects, Links, started really taking off. And I sort of kept doing that for almost 4 years, spending, nights and weekends on my project Links. After almost 4 years of that, had grown it to 25K. And that's when I quit my job for the second time and went all in on that project, or so I thought. Now I'm doing a bunch of different things, but yeah, that was last August 2024. So I've been almost solopreneuring for a year now, and it's been really fun.
And what is the business at today?
As of today, Links is at 27K MRR. The growth has been relatively steady over the last almost 5 years now. What's kind of cool is that these days I'm actually not spending much time on Links at all. I haven't mentioned this yet, but Links, it's a link in bio tool. So similar to something like Linktree, there's a bunch of players in the space, but it's a very simple sort of web page builder, mobile optimized, a way to showcase, all the things you do on the internet, link out to all of those things in a kind of nicely packaged, customizable way. But yeah, these days I've been focusing on developing other projects, doing more stuff with generative AI. And so I'm actually not spending that much time on Links these days because it's kind of running itself, growing on its own, which is really cool.
And you're also a father as well. I think you mentioned maybe that you were able to take a little bit of time off and you have this business that helps support you.
Yeah. So I have a 21-month-old named Nico, and yeah, he takes up a lot of my time these days. It's been really cool having the flexibility to be doing my own thing. Last week he got sick with this thing called hand, mouth, foot disease, and I was able to just, take a couple days, watch him when he wasn't at daycare. And yeah, it's something that would have been a lot harder, I think, if I was still full time. These days, yeah, it feels like I can make myself available whenever I need to. There's never anything so time sensitive that I can't just like push it back by a day or two, which has been really cool.
And where did you first come up with the idea? Obviously, there's things like Linktree and other link in bio tools. How did you think through, okay, I have this idea, and then start to build it?
As I mentioned, this was almost 5 years ago now. And at the time, it was a less competitive space, right? Like Linktree already existed, and there were a few other sort of link in bio tools, but it wasn't like today. I think there's probably 100 plus of these tools. And at the time, I was working on this other project, Visual, which was a print on demand marketplace for artists. And I was doing a lot of outreach to artists, trying to get them to use this platform that I built. And I started noticing that a lot of them were using Linktree. And I had never really been interested in that because as a web developer, I always built my own websites and sort of I didn't really see why someone would need that. And so I just did a little bit more digging into the use cases and seeing that for most people, their personal website doesn't need to be much. It's more of a place where they can link out to all the other stuff they're doing online, and sort of seeing how simple the tools were at the time and feeling like I could do something like that, improve a few areas, like make it more customizable.
How did you get your very first users and get it to 1K MRR?
So the very first users were actually people who were already using my other product, Visual. And so they were kind of my initial target audience, like artists who were selling their stuff online. And so I had a few people who I'd been in touch with for my other project. And I asked them like, hey, I noticed you're using Linktree. Like I built this thing that's kind of like Linktree, but more powerful. At the time, it was completely free. And I sort of onboarded people manually, almost being like, here, I'll help you set up your page. Let me know what you think. And that's how I got my first free users at the time. I then launched on Product Hunt and sort of shared it more publicly on my socials, all that. At the time, it was still a free product. And I was really just trying to like get into that market as like, a free alternative to Linktree that was quite more powerful than what Linktree offered on its free plan. From there, I just kind of gradually started adding more features. And I got to a point where I thought that people might be willing to pay. And I think it was maybe 2 or 3 months after sort of like shipping the initial version that I shipped the paid option, sort of like moved a bunch of the more advanced features behind that, the subscription, grandfathered all the existing users into keeping those features for free, but any new users had to pay to access those features. And very quickly saw that people were willing to pay. And I think it took me about 6 months from like shipping the MVP of the product to getting to 1K MRR. So it was quite fast. There was, less competition at the time. Some of the initial sort of product hunt, some marketing I did, just sharing on my socials resonated well. I did a few paid ads on Instagram and some of those worked. And yeah, I was able to sort of get to 1K MRR relatively quickly.
It's funny how looking back, these things maybe made sense afterwards, but not during, right? You had a completely different target market maybe, or a completely different business. Can you share more about your first attempt to make money online and what that looked like and how that evolved?
My first attempt to make money online was this art project called The Colors of Motion. And that was a project that evolved from something I did in college, actually. I was generating these visualizations of the colors of movies. Basically, you get a sort of color barcode of the colors in a movie, and you can, if you know the movie, you can sort of understand what the different colors represent. And so I started selling those posters at like markets and stuff, like in person on Etsy eventually, and like shipping them manually. And then I sort of discovered these more hands-off print-on-demand options like Printful and a few others. And so my very first online money was selling these posters on Etsy and doing all the manual fulfillment. I didn't do much like market research or even competitive analysis. Like I just trusted myself. It did okay. Like I had like at one point almost 1,000 artists on the platform selling their art. Sort of the peak, I was doing, like high 5 figures in revenue, which, is nothing, but the profit margins were super thin. I did end up shutting that project down.
For anybody listening to this, thinking about quitting their day job to do their own thing, what advice would you give them to approach that and get started?
Yeah, I think if I were to do it again, I would try to have a much better understanding of like whether or not there's a market for the product I'm building. That's kind of like the thing that it worked out in the end, but like I feel like I got lucky. And I think, doing some of that sort of research up front to like identify a real business opportunity, doing the competitive analysis and like sort of doing that up front, I think is something I would do if I could do it again. The landscape has changed so much and the tools have changed so much that like it's a lot easier to get an MVP now with a lot of the sort of, AI coding tools and all of that. So I think I would recommend like doing as much as you can while you're still at your job and feeling like you're setting yourself up for success. And I would say like, don't quit the job until like you feel like it's really holding you back, especially if you're young and willing to grind a bit, like just getting up at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. and like putting in some work before, after work, on the weekends, like you can get a lot done without risking spending all your savings or whatever, or being in a tough situation. So that would be my advice, I think.
And back to those early days when you were just tinkering on the side, like one, how many things have you built, would you say?
I guess like sites that I've launched, like to have their own URL, I want to say like 20 plus, probably. Not all of them were like things that made money or even tried to make money. Some of them were more just like little projects. But yeah, I'd say I've probably launched about 20 things.
And back to maybe one of those very first ones, the tool for artists or something when you had no audience, what were ways back then that you used to acquire those customers, and maybe what would you do today?
So my very first project, The Colors of Motion, which was the one with the visualizations of the colors of movies, I was very much relying on like word of mouth from my friends and family. If I really think back to it, it's like I built this thing that I was proud of. I shared it with a lot of people that I knew. And as I said, I did like in-person, like street fairs and stuff like that, like actually, selling the physical posters. So that was like a very different experience. When I got to some of my subsequent projects, especially like the visual, which was the art marketplace, that's when I started doing more like cold outreach and like just trying to identify people that I wanted on the platform, really trying to take like a white glove approach and like, sending them really personalized messages, saying that I love their work and like offering to help them get onboarded on the product. At that time, I was really focused on just getting a few people to use my thing to then sort of like learn more about what people wanted and try and just be able to say that people are using my product. Like I thought that was super key.
So it took you around 6 months to get to 1K MRR. Can you talk about the journey from 1K MRR to 10K MRR?
Somewhere along between 1K and maybe 5K, I feel like things slowed down a little bit. And I think part of it was there were more and more sort of competitors in the space. It also, I think, had to do with me having less time to dedicate to the project. I think one thing where I pivoted a bit from like sort of growth mode to like maintenance mode kind of, and sort of was trying to figure out more scalable ways to continue that growth. So really like for the last couple of years, I've been mostly relying on paid ads and specifically Google search ads. And that's where I found the best sort of like ROI. I think during that time, I was also building new features based on what people wanted, what I thought people wanted. And I also launched a pro tier. So there was like the premium tier, which gave you access to like the basic functionality. And then there was a pro tier that was more aimed at like folks who are managing multiple profiles. That was actually a really kind of unexpected like new source of revenue because I did it after a few customers like requested a way to manage multiple profiles and sort of did it for them and then realized that, oh wow, there's a bunch of other people who wanted to do this too. So that was really cool.
I've heard you talk about, you just built some very simple flows to capture customer feedback. I think when they cancel, you redirect them to just a Google form. You maybe have a button on your website to collect feedback. How do you look at like the importance of getting customer feedback?
Especially in the early days, it was very important. If ever someone reached out with a feature request, I would like usually do it. I think as the product grew and like I got more and more of that, I sort of became more selective. But like in those early days, to me, it was like, if there's someone using my product who wants something, like I'm going to build it for them. And so that was probably the biggest thing that I would prioritize was just customer requests. Some of them were stupid and I didn't do them, but like a lot of them weren't. And I never knew what was going to be the thing that resonated with people. And like this sort of very simple mechanism to manage multiple profiles, which probably took me like a day to implement, is now like a quarter of my revenue, which is pretty cool. Dropping everything to build something that someone wants versus like realizing that like if someone wants it, probably other people want it as well. And I think that's like the balance to find.
Do you have any team at all?
No, just me. And my AI robots.
Can you tell more about your AI robots? And so-
Yeah. I'm sort of exaggerating. I'm not like a super hardcore AI user. I use Cursor now for my coding. I was a software engineer for like 10 plus years. Like it was hard for me to like make the leap and sort of, take my hands off the wheel a little bit. But once I did, I just kind of realized that it would be silly not to use this incredible tool, and it's just getting better. And so, yeah, I've now sort of gotten to the point where I would say 50% of my code is like AI generated.
Yeah. One of the most popular AppSumo tools is an AppSumo Originals tool TidyCal, which is a lifetime deal for basically a Calendly alternative. And your huge part of your story is you saw Linktree and you're like, oh, I think I could build, a better, more affordable version of it. What do you think and this was back in the day too, when there wasn't, hundreds of these alternatives. Mm-hmm. What do you think might be the current day opportunity for something that has product market fit, but there is space for that market to grow?
I feel like things have changed, and I feel like it's harder to get your foot in the door these days. And I think personally that the best things that you can do to sort of get your foot in the door today is like do something cool or fun. That's like my current theory. Like it's hard to get your foot in the door with a, B2B SaaS. I think, like unless you've figured something out that's pretty novel, or like you're able to find a small enough niche and sort of slice off of, like I think that is an approach, but like at least for me and for what I like to do, like trying to think of fun, cool ideas that people will talk about and share, and then trying to use that as a starting point to like monetize, build on top of that, and like kind of see where that goes. I think that would be my sort of recommendation. It's also like those products tend to be quicker to build because, you're not thinking about crazy like, user management, database like stuff. Like you can get something out pretty quickly. So yeah.
It's interesting to me to hear that you have grown to 25, now 27K MRR, but you got really excited about launching things that like made $1,000 or something. How do you look at just doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on the current thing versus having a portfolio of many different projects?
I get kind of restless, and Lynx is by far the project that I've like maintained for the longest. And like, I'm happy with where it is right now, which is like continuing to grow steadily with very little sort of intervention on my part. Like I'm realistic in that could change any day. Like something could change with, I don't know, like Instagram could decide that they don't want link in bio tools anymore and like, ban us and Linktree and all that, or partner with Linktree and say that's going to be the only one, or I don't know. There are all these like ways that I feel like things could change. But for now, I feel like I'm in this really nice situation where like I can make a good amount of money through that project and like afford to like explore new stuff. And that's just so much more fun to me right now. And I think what I would love to have that would, I think, take a bit of a weight off of like those anxieties that I mentioned around like something happening to Lynx is like develop an alternate revenue stream that, if not matches like Lynx, is like enough that I feel like something major could happen where I wouldn't be like back to zero.
Okay, last question. If you could snap your fingers and have any sort of superpower, whether it's distribution or another product, what wish are you being granted?
I think it would be distribution. I think like if I could snap my fingers and have like 200,000 followers on X and like, be able to share something, guaranteed get people to check it out. Like just that part I think is just so valuable. And I think, that right now I think is maybe the most important thing, because I think if you can kind of cultivate that and maintain it and stay relevant, like then you've basically always got a way to do something new, ship something new, and potentially get a new revenue stream or user stream.
Right. Amazing. Thank you so much, Charlie. Where can people check you out online?
Yeah. So Twitter, X is definitely where I'm most active. My handle is ClarkCharlie03. And that's where I usually share the stuff I'm working on. Yeah. That's where you can find me.
Charlie Clark, you're the man. Nice. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Mitchell.